Denman's defense attorneys completed their case with a couple of character witnesses. Oklahoma City Municipal Court Judge Terry Pendell and Big Cabin State Representative George Vaughn both testified that Don Denman had a good reputation in the community. The government is trying to prove that Representative Denman illegally used his political influence to gain favors from people who did business with the state. During closing arguments, Prosecutor Roger Griffiths told the jury that Representative Denman used his office for his personal benefit and his client's personal benefit, not for the benefit of his constituents in House District 88. Defense attorney Michael Gassaway argued that Denman's problems with the government stemmed from the fact Denman is a lawyer. Gassaway said, quote, "Lawyers are nothing more than hired guns in a civilized society. They're hired to fight other people's fights. Don Denman was doing his job." The defense lawyer concluded by saying, "You don't send someone to the penitentiary based on innuendo."
Jim Thorpe was born in Oklahoma Territory in the year 1888. He was a sack box Indian who grew up to be the greatest athlete in the first half of this century. He won the pentathlon and decathlon during the 1912 games in Stockholm. Because of his semi-professional baseball status before the games, his medals were taken away. 70 years later, after years of struggle, the medals were returned to his family. Decades ago, Jim Thorpe the man was the object of admiration. Today, his memory prompts respect as well.
Yeah, $1 worth?
No, just two.
This morning in Shawnee, for the first time anywhere, the Jim Thorpe commemorative stamp was being sold. By mid-morning, thousands of the stamps had been purchased by students, parents, and those who wanted to remember a true American legend.
We have a lot of collectors from around the country that are here today, too. They have a lot of philatelic value to them, and people that deal in philatelic item stamps, they buy them for their cachets and what have you, and they resell them. So, and plus, we have a lot of collectors that just like to collect things like this for their own use, and the interest is always there.
Despite his accomplishments, James Francis Thorpe died never knowing what his life would mean to millions. Kevin Ogle, News 4.
The justices refused to review the death sentence of convicted killer Roger Dale Stafford, but the High Court did rule that the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals must decide if Stafford's counsel provided an adequate defense. Stafford is on Oklahoma's death row for the 1978 murders of the Melvin Lorenz family and 6 people at an Oklahoma City steakhouse. Since his conviction, Stafford has alleged that his first attorney, J. Malone Brewer, did not serve in his best interests. The burden of proof now lies with Stafford. He must prove that there was a reasonable chance that the outcome of his trial would have been different with a different attorney. But time is on the state side. Attorney General Mike Turpin believes the High Court ruling is a mere technicality and that Roger Dale Stafford is postponing the inevitable.
This does set us back somewhat as far as the timetable we originally had planned. But I also think it's fair to say that the good news for the law-abiding citizens of this state is that the cases, I think, were well tried and the evidence was overwhelming enough in both cases that we'll be able to meet this new hitch.
While Turpin is confident the 9 murder convictions will hold up, the Attorney General admits that Stafford's death sentence will most likely not be carried out in 1984. Kurt Autry, 4 News. 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 Oklahoma's juvenile institutions are ready to complete sweeping reform measures, and federal judge Ralph Thompson agrees. Today, the judge approved a plan to end a 6-year lawsuit critical of conditions in DHS-operated juvenile homes. Allegations of physical and sexual abuse sparked the lawsuit titled Terry D. But a compromise set of guidelines restricting corporal punishment have been established, and all parties involved agree that DHS homes are changing for the better.
If you haven't committed an offense, you don't get locked up anymore. When this case began, more than 50% of the children in state institutions had not committed an offense. They were runaways or deprived children.
Conley Tunnell, Assistant Director for Children and Youth Services for the Human Services Department, is pleased with the prospect of advances in Oklahoma juvenile care.
We're proud of what we've already done, and we're going to be proud of the future. And I think it's something that the defendants can be proud of, too.
Tunnell added that by the end of the year, all of the state's juvenile institutions should be accredited by the American Correctional Association. That stamp of approval is considered a major advance in Oklahoma juvenile care. Kurt Autry, News 4.
Disarming bombs is risky business, and the people in that business take few, if any, chances. That's why all news media invited to the 12th Annual International Association of Bomb Technicians and Investigators Conference had to be searched before entering the building. 330 bomb experts from 8 NATO countries were in attendance. About a half dozen Oklahoma law enforcement agencies invited the explosive handlers to town.
Turn that off. You turn that off, too.
Also at the conference was Major General James Dozier, who was kidnapped by Italian Red Brigade terrorists. General Dozier was held for 42 days back in December of 1981. He recalls his ordeal before being rescued.
The physical sensations you have, other than apprehension, are intense boredom. There is not a whole heck of a lot to do, so you try to compensate and keep both your mind and your body as active and as involved as you can.
The director of the Bomb Association says the delegates talked about new technology and equipment and explained why secrecy of their meeting is so necessary.
The nature of the content of the conference is such that we maintain strict security on the information so that it doesn't fall into the wrong hands and make our job even harder.
Word that a bomb conference was in Oklahoma City could only be made public after all participants had left town. Despite their low profile, the delegates say they had a blast while in Oklahoma. Ed Stewart, News 4.
For safety, that's the biggest thing. The water quality, of course, is the next biggest factor because of the disease potential in the swimming pool if the water's not properly treated. But mostly you have a pool here where children are playing around, and they can stray into the pool and possibly fall in, or accidents can happen, of course, so you want to have the pool up to the maximum standards.
Convincing people that Oklahoma City needs an additional penny sales tax is of top priority at City Hall. Voters will go to the polls on June 26 to decide the fate of the proposed increase. If approved, the tax means about $45 million more a year for the next 5 years in the Capital Improvement Fund. City leaders passed a resolution today saying that the additional money could only be used to repair streets, water, and sewer lines. We asked some Oklahoma City voters if the City Council assured them the penny sales tax would only go towards specific projects, would they support it?
I feel like we're taxed too high as it is right now. 5 cents on the dollar is, pretty steep tax already, so I don't think I would be in favor of it.
I believe that we're just a little bit behind. I'm from California, and everybody else is paying cents on the dollar, and I think we should too. Help the schools, help everything else in Oklahoma City.
Well, I think the city needs additional money for many purposes.
I mean, we definitely need it for the streets and everything. I mean, if that's what they're going to use it for, I mean, and if we know for a fact that's what they're going to use it for, then yeah.
Until the sales tax vote is passed or failed, the city is being very careful in its spending practices. All city departments are being told to keep a close eye on how much money they handle, but no one likes what they're seeing. That is, if the sales tax is defeated, city leaders say it will signal the beginning of a financial nightmare. Ed Stewart, News 4.
The Indians of Santiago Atitlan have not had a priest since Father Stanley Rother was murdered in this Guatemalan mission. The Indians have prayed for a replacement for their murdered martyr. Their prayers are about to be answered. The Catholic Church in Oklahoma is sending 3 missionaries to continue Father Rother's work. Oklahoma's bishops formally commissioned the priest for their service. Political tensions have eased in Guatemala since Father Rother's death, but it takes courage to try to replace the martyred missionary.
My mission, my vocation, is to accept whatever Christ has called me to do. And that means first living for him. And in living for him, if I die, that's part of life. That's part of what I've been called to do.
We have to really put ourselves in the Lord's hands and trust in his plan, and we just try to do as best we can. And I think that's what Father Rother tried to do in Santiago Atitlan, and that's why he's so revered by the people, that he was a man of peace, but he was also faithful.
The Catholic Church pledged to support the missionaries with both material resources and prayers. Scott Wallace, News 4 at St. Gregory's Abbey in Shawnee.
Of the global war. The Germans had boasted it could not be done, but it was done, and the mighty thrust into the heart of Germany began on the beaches of Normandy. These landings sealed the doom of the Nazis.
Landing was made this morning on the coast of France by troops of the Allied Expeditionary Force. This landing is part of the concerted United Nations plan for the liberation of Europe.
The coast of Normandy, Utah Beach, Omaha Beach, where American GIs joined the rest of the Allied forces 40 years ago in the assault to free Europe and end World War II. These are the shores we remember today, but D-Day was really the climax of months of preparation on the other side of the channel. It was here in southern England that American soldiers first made a friendly invasion of Great Britain. While the Nazis bombed outside, old canteen shows like this one kept morale high. Veterans came back to relive those bittersweet memories of war this week and to remember the waiting.
Suddenly, the waiting was over. Thousands of Allied soldiers were loaded on boats and made the trip here across the English Channel. When they reached the other side, D-Day was underway.
Well, there was still a lot of bodies laying around. There was a lot of equipment out of order, and a massive buildup of equipment and men. Many people don't realize this, but we feel, when I say we, the veterans, that if this sacrifice had not been made by the civilians and the military people, that we would be living under a dictator today.
We meet today to remember with thanksgiving all those who took part in the Normandy landings 40 years ago.
This may be the last D-Day trip for many American veterans. Most say they're getting too old to make the pilgrimage to Normandy. but they want the world to remember a simpler time when men joined together for a common purpose.
You saw one of your buddies being injured or harmed in any way, you were right there to help him. These things don't prevail anymore, which is sad, you know. Maybe it'll take another good war to bring people again. I don't know.
Bob Petrick, News 4, Normandy.
The GM plant in Oklahoma City employs 5,800 hourly workers. The payroll could be expanded if the company goes ahead with the installation of a stamping plant now being considered. A stamping plant stamps sheet metal out of steel. GM executives want to cut down on the cost of shipping the sheet metal to plant locations. A feasibility study has been completed here in Oklahoma City. Plant officials are now waiting for the final word on the project.
This area, and I know that Arlington, it was feasible to put a stamping plant here. We have the facilities to do it and, of course, the space. The corporation will make a decision based on the economics, the labor climate in the plant, the quality of the plant, and the community relations.
Unlike the auto production plant, a stamping facility would employ only a few hundred workers. The plant would take 2 years to build. City leaders believe the decision to locate here may hinge upon a lawsuit designed to force GM into paying millions of dollars in back ad valorem taxes. Kevin Ogle, News 4, at the GM plant.
Writing for you, really. Oh, okay. There's no need to sign this one. I'm just back in my law office, trying to get back on top of it after this time that I've been out. And basically, most of the cases that I've got sitting around here to work on right now are personal injury cases and some criminal defense cases, which I may approach with somewhat more zest than in times past.
Like always, vacation season signals the start of a travel explosion at Will Rogers World Airport. Airlines say about 100,000 passengers a month will use Oklahoma City's airport during peak periods. And expectations of price wars in a few weeks should make air travel even more attractive. To help accommodate the growth, 2 major expansion projects are in the works. But But those people who use the airport on a regular basis have mixed opinions about making the facility bigger.
I think it would be better for everyone. I use the airport a lot, flying back and forth to Boston, and it's kind of jam-packed sometimes. I think they need the room.
Personally, I think there are other areas that need to be put in, such as education. So whether it really needs it now or not, I don't know. Maybe in a couple years, maybe not.
Right now, with the way Oklahoma City is growing, I think that we need a larger airport. There's a lot of traffic coming in and out of Oklahoma City. There's a lot of airlines, and now they're having to use, temporary desk counters and things like that. And I think the larger we can build it, the better off we're going to be.
Part of the new project opens in October. It will be a 40,000 square foot addition on the east side of the terminal. An identical project is scheduled for the west end of the building. When all construction is finished, the airport will cover 282,000 square feet. City leaders say after nearly 20 years in operation, airport expansion was long overdue. Ed Stewart, News 4.
Yes.
You can hand it to us.
Charlie.
Wasn't the fault of the council. It was the citizens of this city decided they did not.
This list is a shopping list that the council can draw from. Those of you who were at the meeting yesterday and heard the various people get up and say, hey, tell people specifically what you're going to do. You could spend 3 times as much money on this list as it's set up here as we are going to have to spend.
I am going to completely ignore you. You take to your constituents what you feel like you should, and you're entitled to your opinion. But don't look over to me and cry because you don't have something on a list, or cry because this council is not concerned about your constituents. Simply because I disagree with you, Mr. Gilbert, is not anything against your constituents.
"11 months out of the year, Camp Gruber is home to spiders, snakes, and other wildlife. Each summer, the camp is invaded by another type of creature, one characterized by its green color and loud noises. This day, North Korean snipers attack the president of South Korea. The convoy attempts to outrun the ambush. That's what they're supposed to do. Oklahoma Army National Guard units are completing their annual summer drill. These citizen soldiers have exchanged their overalls and business suits for olive drab. The guardsmen want to look their best. Their boss is watching. Each summer, Governor Nigh visits his weekend warriors.
Put your hand right on this and hold your feed tray cover down.
In the past year, Nigh has called out the Guard to put down a prison riot and to rescue Tulsans from rising floodwaters. The Commander-in-Chief wants to be sure his troops are ready for the next emergency.
You couldn't function as governor without the Guard. The Guard is there to do many things for us. That is to patrol, to assist, to quail. It's a unit, or it's a group of people that we can use for many different instances, and I don't see how a governor could function without the National Guard.
There was a real casualty during the governor's visit. One soldier succumbed not to blanks and smoke grenades, but to heat and humidity. The episode gave the citizen soldiers a chance to show they are ready to handle an emergency anytime, not just 2 weeks out of the summer. Scott Wallace, News 4 at Camp Gruber near Muskogee. to support his position.
I've worked with the Oklahoma legislators for years to try to get homesteading exemption increased. There is no provision in the law to take care of you folks. We, the assessor, must raise taxes, raise values at least once every 5 years. They must be reassessed. But homestead exemption has never increased.
There will be a period of time before it has any effect. We have to pass the regulations and start doing the inspections, and it will be a couple of years, but it will significantly reduce the CO emissions in the city-county area.
Congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
Otis Gary Jones.
Always show humility in dealing with folks not as fortunate as us. Many cases, the calls that you respond to, the automobile accidents, the burned out homes and places of business, represents everything that those folks might have accumulated in their life. Very traumatic for people to lose loved ones and everything that they own.
Patrol Sergeant Steve Upchurch was ready for a day off. After 12 straight shifts of police work, Upchurch got to spend Father's Day with his wife and 3 red-haired daughters. This Sunday, Upchurch wasn't thinking about crime and criminals. His attention was focused on his family. 15 years of police work allows the sergeant to savor these special moments.
I don't know how many times I've come home in the middle of the night and they're in bed, and I'll go around check on them just to make sure they're still breathing. You know, when you've been out and you see some child that's been injured or possibly killed or involved in something serious, and it really makes you appreciate what you have at home.
Steve Upchurch's father is retired from the force. He also knows about police pressures. This Father's Day, he was also able to share this special time with his son and grandchildren. Scott Wallace, News 4.
when you talk about safe and effective, you might talk about effective, but safe has to do with the fact that you're going to execute somebody. So effectiveness is what you want, and if they want something that's not going to cause inordinate pain and suffering during the execution, I guess that's reasonable. One of the things this was espoused for was that it would be the, quote, most humane form of execution. And so whether or not that is true, I guess, is a legitimate question.